All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, the story of how the sanctions on Russia have realigned the global order and will increase prices for all of us, it's very well trodden ground at this point. But in the midst of what some other major actions that will influence our economic future have continued, they fly under the radar. I've been doing my best here to draw attention to how China's COVID-0 insanity could have major ramifications for us here at home, and unfortunately, they continue down their path of this madness. Despite literally on Saturday promising the world it would not do so, Shanghai authorities announced they would be doing a full-scale two-phase lockdown of the entire city of 26 million over just 3,500 COVID infections. The lockdown confines some people to their homes, others even to their offices, where they are required to stay in place so that they can implement a mass testing protocol. Per Chinese authorities who announced the policy, their goal is to achieve, quote, stillness to stop the variant. Now, while some of us here in the West long ago accepted the transmissibility of Omicron made any attempts at lockdown or pandemic mitigation impossible, that we simply had to move on with our lives and that people could get vaxxed if they wanted to, they apparently have not yet reached that conclusion in China. While the Chinese people are almost certainly feeling as annoyed as the rest of us, unfortunately for them, they live in an authoritarian country, and what the authoritarians believe is the only thing that is important. However, if you look further, it's a problem. As I noted last time, China, for reasons that remain a mystery to me, has done a not very good job of vaccinating its elderly population. Only 51% of its population over 80 years old have received 2 COVID shots, while only 20% of those have been boosted. And over 60 is just as bad. Of the 264 million Chinese people aged 60 and over, only 52 million are fully vaccinated. The reason that we in the West don't face the same situation is obviously because we have a very high vaccination rate amongst our elderly population, who of course are the most at risk of this disease. Ironically enough, reporting from inside China indicates that many elderly Chinese did not get the vaccine because they were confident enough in the COVID-0 policy, as in they refused to get the vaccine because they simply thought they'd never be exposed and trusted the Chinese Communist Party. So now, when the Omicron variant rolls around, that defies any realistic attempt to contain COVID. This is really bad. It means Shenzhen and Shanghai are the beginning of this coming disaster. There is no way they're going to be able to vaccinate 150 million or so Chinese elderly fully before Omicron is going to wreck this whole country. That means they are about to get swarmed by mass death, and as Bloomberg notes, it's not exactly like China has a great rural hospital network. I genuinely feel for the Chinese people. Their government failed to contain this pandemic in the first place, put them all through misery of the last 2 years, and then did such a poor job. It is now about to kill millions of their own people, and they still have to lock down. Worst of all worlds, 2 years into this thing. But beyond them, this is going to affect us too. As I covered when Shenzhen locked down, these policies are going to have a massive direct effect on the US economy. When Shenzhen shut down, it meant Apple iPhones had to stop at Foxconn. It appears here that could have been the tip of the iceberg, freezing up nearly $300 billion a year alone in exported goods. Shanghai is very similar. Just last year, Shanghai exported $200 billion worth of goods alone, making it the 5th largest in the entire country. Worse for us, what are the top goods that Shanghai exports? Automatic data processing machines, phones for cellular networks, electronic integrated circuits, computer processing equipment. Now tell me, is that important to the global economy? Oh yeah, by the way, they're the only ones that make it at that scale. Now consider the entire Chinese economy locking down over the next 2 months, precisely when we're going to feel the actual effect of the new disruptive sanctions against Russia. What do we have? Disaster. I'm not the only person noticing this. The only piece of good news out of this lockdown is that oil prices actually dropped by 7% on the news of it, because it means that China, which is the #1 importer of oil, is very likely to go into lockdown, and thus they're going to have a lot less demand and perhaps cheaper gas for us here at home. That's macabre, but potentially positive benefit for us on this end. But it would still be catastrophic and make up for it because we still have to wait for spare parts, consumer electronics, and many of the other necessities of daily life. Globalization is collapsing all around us. If you think we can simply buy things from new places, you're wrong. The problem is that we need a way to get it here, and we remain in a massive shipping container crunch. The vast majority of the containers are where? Oh, that's right. stuck in China, where because of a variety of reasons, we've been sending too many back because of a trade imbalance. Can't get them out unless they ship stuff to us. And if they lock down, good luck. The global shortage in shipping, the high oil prices, inability to reproduce these goods, it is going to wreak havoc on the US and the global economy. The American way of life, in ways that we barely even understand, is eroding. Slowly but surely, we are being taxed for the sins of our leaders in the past who shipped jobs and capacity overseas with the promise of cheap prices. Today, things are actually the worst of all worlds. We have high prices and we make nothing. Nothing is made here. We have no proper skills or ability to scale up in a time of problem. So we're incredibly vulnerable economically. A dark thought I've had lately is that would we really survive another war? At least in the lead up to World War II, we had a concerted effort of industry here at home and even buildup. Even though we had the Great Depression, we still had a big industrial capacity. Do we really have that right now? Wouldn't we need parts from other countries just to make sure our weapons work? Or what about the things outside of weapons? Can the home front really stand in the era of globalization? One of the promises of making us domestically weaker by the elites was that they said the likelihood of war would then decrease because we're all trading with one another and everyone will be democracies and friends and our economies are all connected. Instead, war today is more likely than ever before. Our adversaries are authoritarians, and they are ones who are willing to not only start wars, but also possibly cut us off in that process. And perhaps it's what we deserve for being such fools in the past in the first place. All we can do now is fix it. And too bad Joe Biden doesn't seem to want to do any of that. And Trump was too inept to live up to any of these promises. It seems fitting to have them both as the only two options in these times. I hope that we can make it through, but I'm not so sure. I don't know, Crystal. It's really depressing. First of all, I actually feel terrible for the Chinese people.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.